Hi, everyone, and welcome to your journey through the portals of deconditioning. My name is Kat, and there's a cat. And I was asked to share some of my research that I've done in connecting the Hebrew alphabet with the gene key slash hexagram. But before I did that, I thought it would be fun, if not informative, to kind of share how I saw, feel, or discovered how all of these systems that we're using, even beyond the I Ching and the gene keys, things like the Enneagram, Numerology, Astrology, how are all of these systems connected? And so I'm going to do a very quick, I'm going to try to be super quick, PowerPoint, low budget, so nothing fancy here, presentation just to share with you my feelings about how all of these systems are connected and what cosmic influences they are. And I'm sure none of this information is going to be new to you, but perhaps the putting it all together might be new. But also, it's to just show you what it did for me was show me the profundity of all of these systems that we work with, and just the like nothing is random, the perfect order and real science behind all of these systems. There's real truth. I mean, I know you know that, but sometimes we just don't know. And I want to just give a little bit of a background. So let's get on with it, because I have a tendency to rattle. I'm going to share screen. Oops, not that one. Let's see, let's do this. Share screen. That one. There you go. Okay, so where do we start? In the beginning, of course. Let me make this square a little larger. Not that you need to see me. All right, so in the beginning, out of nothingness, of course, we have had the Big Bang. And out of the Big Bang came all of these lights, sounds, frequencies, and colors. And from the system that we know as the 7 rays of creation, from Theosophy, 7 rays of creation. Now, the Hebrew and other traditions call it something else. They're all rays of light, but they'll call them the 7 rays of the 7 sacred consonants, or the 7 sacred vowels. So every tradition has their 7 somethings that are the precursor to all creation of everything, okay? So I will just refer to them as the 7 rays of creation. You may also know them as the 7 sacred seals in the gene key system. So one connection there. So out of pure divinity, that middle spark is pure divinity. And by the way, side note, all of these lights and the colors, if you see any one of these colors in your meditations, there is a correlation. There's a correlation. These lights mean something in particular, and they represent your levels of consciousness, levels of awakening, or levels how far your awareness has opened into, what levels of reality your awareness has opened into. Just a little side note there. So out of this pure divinity, we had the first sacred geometry that forms, the first triangle. This is the first geometry that formed. It's also known as the Holy Trinity, the 3 primary colors, and also the proton, neutron, electron, the basis of all life. But out of those 3 original, the remaining 4 rays to make up the 7 rays of creation. But the 3 are primary. Just to give you another visual, of course, each of these rays and their colors, their density and frequencies come with qualities. Man has called these things qualities of consciousness, with red having the frequency of willpower, 2nd ray, love and wisdom, 3rd, active intelligence. And we'll move on to the fourth ray, harmony through conflict. Fifth ray, science, truth, and healing. Sixth ray, spiritual idealism and faith. And seventh ray, freedom and transformation. And I think I'll just move to this slide because it's much easier. So I hope you're beginning to see by looking at this particular slide. Ray 1 is all about will and power and all sub-qualities underneath that. The second ray, love and wisdom. The third ray, active intelligence and adaptability. Are you beginning to see that these 7 rays of creation, or these rays of creation, might have a correlation to the 6 lines of the gene keys or hexagram? Isn't it true that always the first ray is dealing with some kind of will and power? And underneath that will and power rays, that there it's also about being in alignment with the divine mind, knowledge, intellect, right ways of doing things, etc. You can see the different qualities that are sub-qualities under these rays. So already we have our second correlation, that these lines in the gene keys and human design as well are correlated to the 7 rays of creation. And if you're familiar with the Enneagram, you have the 9 personality types that also, each of those types fit under all of these rays. Types 8, 9, and 1 come under the first ray of will and power. And so you might be thinking, well, there's 7 rays and there's 6 lines of the hexagram. Well, this is my theory. I don't know for sure, but this is what came to me. We know that going from the bottom to the top, it's a transition. And when you get to the 6th line, the top of the hexagram, there's always a point of transition where you move up to the next first line. And this is what I feel, that the 7th ray is always the ray of transition and transformation. So you get to the 6th line, and the 7th ray is represented by the space in between that moves you to the next first line. So it's a transformation point. And if you're familiar with the law of 7, the law of 7 in transformations, that 7th point is the space of transformation. So these are the 6 rays of creation affecting us. We'll say 7. And they are the basis of all of these systems that you've ever worked with. If you can think back to numerology systems, any numerology systems, all numerology systems are descendants of the original Hebrew system. And it just fits, like all number 1s are dealing with will and power and the divine mind and Archangel Michael and all that sort of stuff. So you can see the correlations here, or at least I hope you can. One little note about these rays of creation: not all rays, not all 7 rays are active on this planet or influencing the planet all at one time. We have some rays that are out of activity. And so also during the creation of these systems, not all 7 rays were in activity, but I still feel like the 7th ray is still the transition point. Anyway, just one note: if you're familiar with the gene keys or Mahesh Yogi of the Transcendental Meditation, it is predicted that in 2024 and 2025, we will see real change, that this is when the golden age or Sat Yuga will really come into fruition, into manifestation. And that is because, I know it's because of astrological alignments, but I wanted to know more. There had to be more. And then I discovered that it is the 4th ray of harmony, beauty, and art, but it's the 4th ray of creating harmony through conflict, harmony through conflict, that will be for the first time in our recent history, that this ray will be in activity and influencing us on this planet. And it's such a beautiful ray. It was in activity during the previous golden ages. And to correlate the 4th ray to the 4th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. It is called the doorway or the Garden to Eden, and it talks about the manifestation of the Garden of Eden on planet Earth. So this is what we have to look forward to, the fourth ray entering into our cycle during the years 2024 and 2025. And the sixth ray of idealism will be going out. The seventh ray has been in here behind the scenes, sparking all of this transformation and freedom. Okay? So as these rays are spiraling and fractaling out into the universe from the source, they're creating geometries and planets, right? So we have all these planets, and all in this system, all of these constellations, these planets have geometric forms to them. And this whole thing together, all of these geometries put together, have created this 64-bit matrix, the 64 tetrahedral structure that underlies all of space-time reality. I hope that you can already see another correlation to a system. Yes, of course, it's the I Ching. 64 tetrahedral structure, 64 hexagrams, all relating to space-time reality and all the planets and everything, all the geometries of the planets and all of that. It's, to me, it's mind-boggling, the system of the I Ching. Here is just a little graphic showing you all the different hexagrams, their placements within this 64 tetrahedral structure. And I know that there's a graphic out there that has the planets and the constellations written in there. I couldn't find it. But you can see in here that these lines represent the 6 rays of creation that are influencing, penetrating through these geometries, and then ultimately, and creating each scenario of the hexagram, as well as each scenario of the line of the hexagram. I hope that makes sense. Okay, that's fascinating, but let's move on because I got to keep this short. Yes, just bringing in the Hebrew Kabbalah system. This is the Tree of Life. The Tree of Life is part of this 64 tetrahedral structure. There are many trees of life in there. So what is all this? What do all these triangles, the primordial triangle and these sacred geometries, how does that relate to you and your spiritual journey? Well, I'll show you. Here you are. Here is man with his own geometry around him. And this is called your light body. And this is called a 2-star tetrahedron. And 2-star tetrahedrons create energy vortexes. You are an energy vortex. And this light body, also known as the Merkaba or your Merkaba, also known as the chariot. This light body is activated and developed over lifetime and lifetime and lifetime. We can say, you know, it correlates with your level of consciousness and awakening. So we could say that perhaps many people, if not most people on this planet at this time, do not have an awakened, an activated light body. But most certainly, if you're watching this video, you do. And you have already spent several lifetimes purifying and illuminating aspects of this light body, your Merkaba, your chariot, because the goal of the spiritual journey is to illuminate the entire Merkaba so that, and remember, it's called the chariot as well, because when this is illuminated, you are liberated. You are in moksha. You are liberated from this planet, from the wheel of physical incarnation. Your light body, your rainbow body is activated, and now you can move from this realm into the next and start all over again. So this is really, really key. So how does that relate to the Hebrew alphabet? I'm sure you already know, the Hebrew alphabet, let me move my little thing here, is made up of the star tetrahedron. They call it the Star of David, but it represents your light body. And each of the letters, the Hebrew alphabet, is read from right to left. Each of the 22 letters represents a particular angle of the geometry of your light body. So by working with all of these systems, let me back up, and the Hebrew alphabet, I knew that the gene keys in the hexagram came from the Hebrew letters, but I thought, which one matches which one? I couldn't. Anyway, I discovered, or I was guided to find the correct book. It was just absolutely amazing. I literally had the book sitting on my shelf. I hadn't read it for years, but I was told the beginning of my journey, that I had to get this book and read it. Well, it's the Book of Knowledge, the Keys of Enoch, and it's impossible to read and understand. So I just put it on the shelf. I never got rid of it, but I couldn't find anywhere where the correlation of these Hebrew letters, how they were connected to the gene keys, like what gene keys came under what letter. There has to be a connection. And so when I asked, I was guided directly to that book on my shelf, and I practically opened the book to the page that showed the Hebrew letters and their corresponding amino acids. And that's how I was able to connect the Hebrew letters with the codon rings of the gene keys, or the hexagrams. So we know exactly the direct connection of hexagrams, what hexagrams come under what Hebrew letter, and we can go even further, what Hebrew letters originate from what 7 rays of creation. Anyway, I hope that was interesting, illuminating, and comforting, that all of these systems really have deep, truthful, meaning, scientific background. And they're all connected, and they're all beautiful, and they are all leading us to the purification, the activation and the purification of our light body, so that we can liberate ourselves and move to the next realm. Okay, so I'll see you next time. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.